Why does humanity, in all its advancement, still bleed from the wounds of hatred? Why, in a world that invented poetry, music, and medicine, do we still kill each other with words, with guns, with cold indignation? Have you ever felt it? That moment when someone looks at you not as a person, but as a category, a threat, a mistake. That invisible wall that rises between you and another soul just because you are different, in color, in belief, in language, in origin. We've all seen it. Some of us have caused it. Most of us have been its victims. Hatred is not an abstract idea. It's a pulse. A poison. A slow, invisible fire burning through generations. It hides in schools, in homes, in casual jokes. It speaks from podiums. It whispers in the minds of lonely people searching for someone to blame. It is older than nations. Deeper than doctrines. And stronger, at times, than love. But why? Why is hatred still alive? Maybe the better question is, what is it that we truly hate? We hate what we fear. We hate what we do not understand. We hate when we feel powerless, and hatred becomes a mask for our own helplessness. It gives the illusion of control. The illusion of superiority. It tells us, you are better, because they are worse. It lies to us, beautifully. From a Stoic perspective, hatred is a failure of reason. Epictetus said, it is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments concerning them. We are not born with hate. A child sees a stranger and reaches for them. Only later, when we have been trained to divide the world into us and them, do we begin to recoil. Hatred is not instinct. Hatred is habit. We are told to take sides. We are taught that there is not enough for everyone. That the world is a battleground. That if someone else is rising, we must be falling. That if they win, we lose. And so we begin to watch each other with suspicion, envy, coldness. But Stoicism says, all humans are citizens of the same city. That no matter where you are born, you are a part of the same cosmic whole. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor, wrote to himself, what injures the hive, injures the bee. And yet we live as if injuring others will somehow elevate us. How can it be that in the age of satellites and space exploration, we cannot cross the tiny space between one human heart and another? Because hatred is easier than understanding. It takes courage to try to see through the eyes of someone we've been taught to resent. It takes strength to listen. It takes wisdom to forgive. But anyone can hate. A coward can hate. A child can be taught to hate. Hatred requires no discipline, no virtue, no soul. So what can we do about it? First, we must recognize that hate thrives in ignorance. We fear what we don't know. We hate what we refuse to see clearly. That's why the Stoics believed in self-examination, daily reflection, and the pursuit of truth. Not public truth, not slogans or ideologies, but the truth of our own reactions. Why did I feel that? Why did I recoil? What am I really afraid of? Seneca said, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Much of our hatred is imaginary, built on stories we've been told about others, or fears we've nursed in silence. The mind, when left unchecked, does not always tell us the truth. It tells us what is easy. And it is easy to blame others for our discomfort. But if you are to be truly free, not just from political chains, but from emotional slavery, you must ask yourself, what controls me? What thoughts rise in me like storm clouds? Who benefits from my anger? You see, hatred is often fed to us by those who profit from division. The more we fight each other, the less we fight injustice. The more we are distracted by artificial enemies, the less we challenge our own failings. Tyrants love hatred. Demagogues feed on it. It gives them power. It gives them votes. It makes them seem necessary. That's why the first step in breaking the cycle is to look within. Are you at peace with yourself? Or are you projecting your battles onto the world? Do you secretly want someone to blame? Do you look for someone to hate so you don't have to face your own pain? Because if hatred is a fire, then unhealed wounds are the fuel. And here's the hardest part to accept, hatred, at its core, is always self-hatred. No one truly at peace with themselves wishes harm on another. No one who feels strong and whole feels the need to dominate or destroy. Hatred is the roar of a wounded heart. So the work, the real work, begins not with them, but with you. Silence the noise. Step away from the tribe. Stop repeating what others believe. Ask yourself, with courage, what do I know about love? What do I know about peace? Have I ever truly listened to someone I disagree with? Have I ever tried to understand, not to win, but to learn? And more than anything, have I forgiven myself? Because a man who has forgiven himself does not need to punish the world. We live in a world where silence is feared and noise is praised. Where shouting gets more attention than stillness. But the Stoics knew that wisdom doesn't scream. It doesn't throw stones. It doesn't march behind flags. It stands still. It watches. It asks questions that burn like fire. Is this necessary? Is this just? Is this mine to judge? Hatred is the voice that says, react. But reason says, wait. That moment, the pause between stimulus and response, is where freedom lives. The one who learns to pause, to observe his emotions like clouds drifting through the sky, is the one who no longer lives as a slave. That is what Marcus Aurelius practiced every morning. He woke up not to plan conquests, but to prepare his mind. He reminded himself, today I will meet people who are selfish, rude, ignorant, arrogant. He didn't hate them. He expected them. And he trained himself not to become like them. This is how we begin to dissolve hatred, not by demanding others change, but by becoming unshakable in our own peace. There is no justice in screaming. There is no strength in rage. There is no wisdom in revenge. The man who responds to hate with hate creates more of the same poison, and then complains that the world tastes bitter. But the one who turns hatred into discipline, who lets it sharpen his soul like a blade against stone, that man becomes free. The Stoics were not passive. They didn't run from life. They faced it directly, with calm eyes and steady hands. They fought injustice, not with noise, but with virtue. Not with anger, but with integrity. When people spat at them, they stood still. When they were laughed at, they answered with silence. Because they knew, the highest strength is restraint. And that strength, you have it too. Maybe you forgot. Maybe the world convinced you that to be heard, you have to shout. That to survive, you have to hate back. That if you don't pick a side, you're a coward. But that's the voice of the mob, not of the philosopher. What does it mean to be truly human? Not just a collection of instincts, not just a bundle of reactions, but a soul with a mind that can choose. Choose not to hate. Choose not to respond to fire with fire. Choose to be the one who ends the war, not with weapons, but with understanding. Of course, it's hard. It's easier to follow your tribe. It's easier to believe what you're told. It's easier to hate an image than to talk to a person. But Stoicism does not offer an easy path. It offers a noble one. And nobility begins with self-mastery. There is a famous quote, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's what hatred does to us. It rots us from the inside. It pretends to be power, but all it does is keep us weak. It convinces us that others are the problem, so we never fix ourselves. But when you release hatred, something incredible happens. You begin to see clearly. You begin to notice beauty again, in people you once dismissed, in faces you used to ignore. You begin to feel compassion for those who are still trapped in the chains you broke free from. You stop blaming. You start understanding. You stop fighting. You start creating. And most of all, you stop fearing. Because hatred is born of fear. But courage, real courage, is love in action. The brave man is not the one who raises his voice the loudest. He is the one who walks into a room full of enemies and carries no shield. Who listens before speaking. Who chooses dignity over vengeance. Who, like a true Stoic, says, let them hate. I will remain who I am. And who are you? You are not your wounds. You are not your pain. You are not the stories others told about you. You are not what they did to you. You are not the hatred passed down to you. You are what you choose to become next. That is where your power lies, not in the past, but in this moment. Right now. With each breath, you can stay chained to the fire of resentment, or you can rise. Choose to rise. How? By doing the hard thing. The noble thing. The quiet thing. Walk away from the argument. Refuse to repeat the gossip. Let go of the grudge. Apologize first. Refuse to make an enemy. Look at someone you disagree with and ask, what happened to you? Not, what's wrong with you? And most of all, refuse to be reduced. Because hatred reduces us. It makes us small, narrow, predictable. It steals our imagination, our empathy, our depth. It turns the world into black and white, and our hearts into stone. But love? Love makes us vast, spacious, alive. And love is not weakness. It is not softness. It is a kind of strength the world cannot understand. When you respond with kindness, you're not surrendering. You're conquering yourself. And what greater victory is there? There's a moment in every life, quiet, subtle, but unmistakable, when you stand at a crossroads. One path leads deeper into rage, into tribal thinking, into vengeance disguised as justice. The other leads toward a quiet kind of dignity. The Stoics stood at that crossroads every day. And they chose, again and again, the harder road. Not because it made them look noble, but because it gave them peace. When Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was simply fighting to remain human in a world that demanded otherwise. He was a man surrounded by war, betrayal, and power-hungry men, yet he never became like them. He refused to let the cruelty of others become his own character. That's the first rule of life: you become what you tolerate in yourself. If you allow hatred to sit in your chest for long enough, it will change you. It will become your language, your lens, your identity. But if you sit with your anger, without acting on it, without feeding it, you will see that underneath it all, you are not an enemy. You are a soul looking for peace. Seneca wrote, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." And this is what hatred does: it keeps us chained to a version of tomorrow that never comes. A tomorrow where we win, where they lose, where we are finally seen, finally respected, finally safe. But hatred never delivers that future. It only ensures that today is filled with bitterness. So how do we begin to heal? We start by being brave enough to feel. Not react, but feel. Let the discomfort wash over you. Let the old pain rise. Don't run from it. Don't disguise it with superiority. Face it. And you will see that hatred was never your strength. It was your shield. A shield you picked up when you were too young, too hurt, too scared to know any better. You can put it down now. You are not in danger. You are not weak for wanting peace. In fact, peace is the most rebellious act you can commit in a culture addicted to outrage. Choosing peace in a world of fire is not naivety. It's power. But peace is not passive. Peace is not closing your eyes and pretending injustice doesn't exist. Peace is seeing it, clearly, painfully, and choosing to respond with wisdom, not wrath. Peace is not silence. Peace is presence. Calm, unshakable, luminous presence. The kind that makes cruelty tremble and ignorance shrink. If hatred is the scream of a wounded child, peace is the voice of the adult who knows the way home. So let me ask you, when was the last time you really listened? Not to your side. Not to your people. But to the human being behind the label you despise. When was the last time you asked, what are they afraid of? What do they long for? What made them who they are? You don't have to agree. You don't have to approve. But to understand, even a little, is to dismantle the illusion of them. There is no them. Only us, still too afraid to admit how alike we really are. The man who hates you wants the same things you do: safety, purpose, dignity. But he's been taught that the only way to find it is through domination. That's not evil. That's fear misdirected. That's pain unanswered. So when you respond to that man with mercy, not softness, but mercy, you don't just save yourself. You show him a different path. And maybe, just maybe, he'll follow it. That is the work of a true philosopher. Not to argue, but to embody. Not to destroy, but to show a new shape of life. And it begins with the small things. The way you speak to a stranger. The way you think about someone who wronged you. The way you catch the first spark of anger in your chest, and breathe instead of ignite. This is not weakness. This is discipline. Hatred is easy. But mastery? That takes training. Repetition. Courage. Every time you choose not to retaliate, you are building strength. Every time you choose to wait before judging, you are building patience. Every time you look at someone and see a human instead of a threat, you are building wisdom. And one day, all those small moments will become your character. Then, when the world tries to pull you back into its chaos, when the mob screams, when the tribe demands loyalty, when injustice surrounds you, you will not collapse. You will stand. Not because you are numb, but because you are grounded. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much to add more suffering to a world already burning. This is the path of the Stoic. This is the way of the one who chooses love not because it's easy, but because it's right. And here's what's beautiful, it only takes one. One person who doesn't hate back. One voice that speaks with calm instead of rage. One hand that doesn't strike, but reaches out. The ripple begins. The pattern breaks. The world shifts, not through grand revolutions, but through the quiet rebellion of a soul who refuses to hate. Let it be you. Let it start here. You may ask, what difference can I make? I'm just one person. The hatred in this world is too vast, too loud, too ancient. What can one drop of calm do in an ocean of fire? But that's the lie hatred wants you to believe, that you are powerless. You are not. One man choosing peace can change a family. One family choosing compassion can heal a community. One community choosing courage can reshape a nation. You don't need to fix the world. You only need to fix your corner of it. That means starting with your own mind. That means looking at yourself every day, not with shame, but with honesty. Ask yourself, what thoughts am I feeding? What emotions am I allowing to rule me? What grudges am I still carrying like stones in my chest? And then let them go. Not because they're forgiven. Not because they were right. But because you are no longer willing to let your heart be a prison. You were not born to hate. You were not made for war. You were made to grow. To feel. To build. To teach. To connect. To rise above the primitive instinct that says, hurt what hurts you. The Stoics taught us, nothing is more human than the ability to choose our response. Between pain and revenge, choose healing. Between insult and retaliation, choose silence. Between anger and understanding, choose wisdom. Between despair and hope, always choose hope. Hope is not fantasy. Hope is direction. Hope says, yes, it's hard. Yes, it's dark. But there is light. And I will move toward it. You will not always feel strong. You will not always be patient. Sometimes you will fall into the same anger, the same judgment, the same rage. That's okay. The goal is not perfection. The goal is presence. Get up. Try again. Be better today than you were yesterday. That's the Stoic way. That's the only way anything ever changes. You see, hatred does not die in revolutions. Hatred dies in quiet moments. In forgiveness offered when none was asked. In the softening of a voice. In the willingness to say, I don't understand you, but I want to. Even in war, even in prison, even in betrayal, a man can choose peace. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years behind bars. When he was released, he didn't seek vengeance. He sought reconciliation. That is Stoicism in action. That is philosophy embodied. That is the true meaning of strength, not dominance, but dignity. The world wants you angry. It wants you reactive. It wants you addicted to conflict, because conflict sells. Outrage keeps you scrolling. Division makes you easier to manipulate. Fear keeps you buying what they're selling. But you don't have to participate in the performance. You can step away. You can choose a different rhythm, slower, clearer, deeper. You can choose to think. To question. To breathe. To look a hateful world in the eye and say, not through me. Let others shout. You speak gently. Let others accuse. You ask questions. Let others build walls. You open doors. And when they call you weak, naive, foolish, smile. Let them. They don't know that silence is power. That calm is strategy. That nothing terrifies the system more than a man who cannot be provoked. Hatred will not go away overnight. There will be setbacks. There will be tragedy. There will be moments when the weight of it all feels unbearable. But you are not alone. Every time you choose peace, someone sees it. Every time you refuse to hate, someone remembers. Every time you act with dignity in the face of cruelty, you become a mirror, showing others what they forgot they could be. This is not theory. This is not abstraction. This is a way of life. A discipline. A commitment. To live without hatred is the most radical act of our time. To live without hatred does not mean you agree. It does not mean you surrender. It means you rise above. Because hatred wants to pull you down into its mud. into its noise, into its blindness. And when you refuse, you're not just saving yourself, you're giving others permission to rise, too. That's how it spreads. Quietly. Powerfully. Not through speeches, but through example. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth. He had every reason to be cruel, every opportunity to act on ego and revenge. But he chose the inner empire instead, the one that cannot be taken away by war or politics or death. And so must we. If we are ever to reduce the hatred in this world, it must begin in the one place we control, ourselves. No one can take away your ability to choose peace. No one can force you to hate. No one can dictate the tone of your soul. That is yours. Protect it. Tend it like a flame. And when the world goes dark again, as it will, be the one who lights a candle. Because the truth is simple, hatred ends where you end it. It ends with you.